this is Dave signing off 187. This is another video to do with 8th generation compared to past generations. My thoughts and opinion. And another video from Dave. And yeah, pretty much is a video talking about this generation for me so far compared to other generations. You know, like the 3rd generation, the 4th generation, 5th generation, 6th generation, and 7th generation. So basically, everything that's going on in this generation, I mean, so far, you know, a lot of stuff. There's a lot of good stuff, don't get me wrong. You know, we had some great games that just came out. Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain. I'm hearing a lot of great things about Mad Max. I loved Alien Isolation. I talked about one of my last podcasts, my favorite game so far, Evil Within. But we have had a lot of upsets, you know, Destiny. That was an upset to me. This is all in my opinion, this video. And I know a lot of other people that are upset with Destiny. And that was a game that was highly hyped up. I mean, some people were talking about that game was going to destroy Halo, you know, all that stuff. Then you had Watch Dogs, which was a very hyped up game. And, you know, from what we first saw to what we got was a completely different game. You know, it was like, it just wasn't what they had it out to be. You know, definitely the graphics. You know, and, you know, to me with this generation, I think from last generation, this generation is the worst when it comes to DLC, microtransactions. Are you going to be getting the full game? How much is it going to come to when I actually get everything I want with this game? Some games costing close to like, you know, over $150, you know, or more to get the full game. You know, with some games, if you wanted everything, the skins, the DLC packs, you know, all the shit. You know, you have to spend a lot of money. A lot of these games, you know. And it kind of, to me, with all the hype they're putting around these games, microtransactions, DLC, it's ruining the gaming experience, you know. Back in the day, you know, in the 3rd generation, 4th generation, you know, those generations, 5th generation, even 6th generation, you bought a game. You got that game, you know. That was the game. There was no adding on, you know. There wasn't gonna patch it down the road, you know. Now they're giving you games where you might get some of your game in the beginning, and they're just gonna patch it on down the road, and then you might get the complete game in a year or maybe longer. You know, you never know what's gonna happen. You don't know what they have took out of that game that was originally in the game from the get-go that they want to sell off on DLC and all that shit. That is ruining the gaming experience, you know. And if you go by, like, you know, I saw Grimpachi made a video, you know, Gamers Can't Read, and he did the second part, / Too Many Great Games to Play. And he mentioned how he thinks it's crazy if, you know, people, you know, are unhappy and they can't find any games to play. You know, it's not that I don't think they can find any games to play, but when you see the shit that's released and all the shit that's going along with it, you know, you're scared to buy some of these games. And, you know, what's going to be my total investment with that game when I'm done? You know, I bought the collector's edition to Mortal Kombat 10 for $160-something, and I still don't have the complete game. Is there something wrong with that? That I had to buy, you know, DLC, like, you know, skins and stuff. Why did I not get the complete game with that purchase of a collector's edition? Can you tell me? Tell me in the comments section. I would like to know. Now, compared to past generations, if I was to buy a collector's edition, or even usually the game itself, you're going to get all that's in that game right with the game, except maybe like last generation and the generation before that. You know, with the original Xbox and PS2, you know, they had some online shit going on. From what I can remember, you know, with the online. I never had the online in the PS2, but the original Xbox had, you know, DLC and shit. But if you go back to like the 3rd generation, the 4th generation, you know, with the NES, the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, the original PlayStation, you know, the N64, the PlayStation, I might have already said that, kind of tired. You didn't put up with that shit, you know. It wasn't going on, you know. my opinion, who brought that to the console market would have been Microsoft, but I think if it wasn't for Microsoft, it would have been Sony, you know. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But basically what I'm trying to get at, all this hype and all this shit they do with this microtransactions, DLC, it's kind of hurting, you know, your gaming experience. Back then, social media was pretty much GamePro, you know, and Nintendo Power, you know, that's what you got. Electric Game Monthly, that was your info, you know. Now it's like every time you turn on YouTube, you got a new game story, you know, new gaming news. And it's like they tell you so much about these games by the time they come out, it's like they're not even interesting. You know the whole fucking game, what's going to happen, you know. It's kind of like a movie, you know. The trailers nowadays in the movie industry is ruining movies. Prime example, Terminator. They showed off one of the biggest parts of the movie in the fucking trailer, you know. That's why if a game I really want to play, I try not to look at it. But sometimes it's so hard to do that, you know, when they're showing off new stuff at E3 and Gamescom and all YouTube videos of, you know, GameSpot and IGN. You know, you get what I'm saying? And I think, you know, like I explained to King Grimpachi when I talked to him after, it was the other day we talked on Party Chat, you know, I think a lot of it, too, has to do with me getting older. I'm 31 now, you know. I grew up in the NES generation. And my brother had, you know, he was 8 years older than me. He had all the consoles before the NES. You know, he had the Ataris and stuff like that. So, I always was around this shit. And I had my own shit. My first console was Super Nintendo because he had the NES. But I grew up in the NES generation. And growing up from those generations to now, you know, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, to the 8th, it's, to me, they're making a lot of these games, really, they're putting them on a pedestal, and then when they finally come, you're just not really satisfied. I think that's why you have so many gamers bitching, and some gamers just like to bitch. Back then, like I said, you just had a GamePro, you know, Electric Game Monthly, and Nintendo Power, and that was it. Now you got to worry about, like I said, if you're going to be getting the full product, you know, what's going to go on with microtransactions. Now with Metal Gear, like King Grimpachi's video, and playing the game myself, I'm starting to understand where these microtransactions might come into play, and I hope I'm fucking wrong. And I hope, and not saying I want King Grimpachi to be wrong, because he's a smart dude, I know he's on something, but I'm hoping he's wrong, because if that's right, and it does affect your gaming experience, that's going to suck, because that's a great game, you know, to be honest. I'm hoping it doesn't, you know, but they're doing shit like that, you know, that's fucked up. That is fucked up. You know, that's the shit that's ruining gaming. Yes, we've got some great games this generation. Like I said, I love The Evil Within. I loved Alien Isolation. And so many people told me Alien Isolation was just garbage. That game, in my opinion, was fucking a masterpiece in my eyes. You got Metal Gear. You got Mad Max. I didn't play that. But you got a lot of games. But also, you got a lot of remasters, and you got a lot of indie games, you know, and there's nothing wrong with indie games, but I didn't come into this generation knowing that a big part of the, you know, games that were coming are indie games, and everybody's going to say, what, you can't play, what's the difference from an indie game to a AAA? To me, I always liked games that were, you know, I've always liked the AAA game. I don't know how to explain it. I like it. When I go to the movies, do you like watching low-budget movies, or do you like watching the big picture? You know, do you like, you know, AAA movies, blockbusters? What do you like watching? It's the same thing as fucking gaming. There is indie games that I really do like. You know, don't get me wrong on that. But I didn't know this generation, and it is so far, this is the beginning of the generation, you know, that it was going to be a lot of indie games and a lot of rehashes, and I don't find nothing wrong with the remakes, remasters, whatever the fuck you want to call them. People have different names for different one or which one's what. To me, they're all a fucking remaster. It don't matter, you know. It don't matter. Unless it's like Gears of War, to where, you know, it looks like they built it. I don't even know if they built that one from the ground up, but it does look better than, you know, it looks like they improved it. Last of Us looks like they improved that. You know, but games like Sleeping Dogs, and what's another one I got recently? I got Sleeping Dogs, which basically looks like, you know, the PS3 version. It looks the same exact thing. And then Dishonored, basically what they did with that recent remake, remaster, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, It's basically they just ported the game with all the DLC and called it a day. Barely touched up on the graphics. Now these fucking developers are getting straight out lazy with that shit. They see a quick cash grab, fucking send it. You know, don't even touch that bitch up, don't do nothing. You know, and then have the nerve to charge you like $60 when that game comes out. I think Sleeping Dogs was about $60 when it came out. I could be wrong, but I have seen a lot of these remasters, remakes, whatever, you know, at $60, and they hadn't hardly do shit to the game, you know? Just saying. That's what I'm talking about, you know? Look at the original Xbox. I mean, not the original, Xbox One right now. The first major releases of it are Rare Replay and Gears of War Ultimate, which I like Gears of War Ultimate. I bought it, but don't you think there's something wrong with that? The first major releases this far into the year are games that have been out for years, you know? What's wrong with that picture, guys? Can you please help me? And Mr. T did a video today, you know, kind of pointing that out, you know? He pointed that out, and I'm sure he'll catch hell for it. But, and shout out to Mr. T, great video. His video will be linked in the description. But yeah, this is my point. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes, there's great games. Sunset Overdrive, I played that. I love it. I beat it. You know, it's a great game. But like I'm saying, they're building these games up. They're putting them on a pedestal. And when it comes time to deliver, you're not really that satisfied with it. Am I enjoying this generation? Yes. You know, I've got The Witcher. I like what I played of it. I like Metal Gear. But, you know, all this DLC and season passes and expansions and how much a game comes out to actually be from what we used to have to pay is kind of fucking depressing, you know, and it's a letdown, you know. But that's my video. That's my points of view to the whole thing of, you know, too many great games to play. I understand there's a lot of great games to play, but there's a bunch of bullshit to go along with it too. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, but tell me what you think in the comment section. Am I crazy? You know, I do like this generation, and this is the beginning, to be fair. But from the other generations in the past, you know, even going back to like when you went from the PS1 to the PS2, I didn't even get to touch on that. You went from the PS1 to PS2, you saw that graphical leap. PS2 to PS3, especially, you know, the 6th generation, 7th generation, we all saw that graphical leap going to HD. You know, every generation, even from the NES to Super Nintendo, you saw the graphical leap, you know. It was impressive. This generation, to be fair, with them, you know, having to make games for last generation still, and a lot of the big name games, I think if they didn't do that, we would see the graphical leap maybe, but they want to, you know, make their money on last generation, which in my opinion, last generation needs to die already. You know, and that they're holding the graphics back on some games. You know, imagine what Metal Gear may have looked like if they didn't have to develop, you know, on last generation. You know, what could have, it might even look even more mind-blowing. I don't know, because they still are making games for last generation, so I could be wrong on that. It might look just the same. You know, a game like The Order, that was pretty damn impressive, but, you know, Metal Gear, that looks good too. I couldn't imagine what that would have looked like, you know, if they didn't have to develop last generation, but who knows? Maybe that's the best they could have got it on the PS4. We don't know. But to me, it seems like we got a lot of lazy developers this generation, in my opinion. You know, and another thing I want to mention, too. I think one reason, too, I'm very, you know, kind of disappointed this generation. I started out with the Wii U, you know, this generation. Got it day one. And I got the PS4 day one. I was late. I just got an Xbox One. But I started with the Wii U, went through all that bullshit with that console. After being let down from Nintendo, you know, in the GameCube, I skipped the Wii. I was thinking it was the next Super Nintendo. Went through all this bullshit, you know, waiting for that console to get games. And it got some good games, but it was more of a waiting game than fucking anything. And I think that plays a part to hurting, you know, my experience this generation. So I know it'll get better. My opinion can change. It's just my opinion on this generation so far compared to others. This could be the best generation ever. We don't know yet. But the way it's looking, with microtransactions, the DLC practices, you know, how they're getting, you know, send in your game, you know, you buy a game, they're gonna send it to you down the road, patch it in, you know, broken games, I didn't even mention all that, all the fucking broken games this generation, you know. But that's my video. I know I went long enough. I didn't mean to even go this long. I don't know how long I went. But that's my video. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Am I fucking crazy? Do you feel that way from past generations? And more videos to come. Thank you, YouTube.